Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about alleles and types of dominance. So yesterday you had the lesson 2 textbook work where you were familiarized with some of these terms, and we're going to go over those today. So we have two different types of alleles. We have dominant alleles, which are represented by a capital letter, and they are always physically expressed or present. If it's present in the genotype, it will always be physically expressed in the phenotype. Then we also have recessive alleles, which are represented by a lowercase letter, and they are only expressed physically if it's paired with another recessive allele. So if you have a dominant allele, it will always show the dominant phenotype. If you have two recessive alleles, that's the only time you'll see recessive. We have two different types of pairing for alleles. We have homozygous allele pairings, in which both alleles are the same. For example, we have two dominant alleles that will be called homozygous dominant. If we have two recessive alleles, that will be called homozygous recessive. We also have heterozygous allele pairing, which is where both alleles are different in the case of dominant and recessive. So you'll have one dominant allele, one recessive allele. However, it's important to know that even though the recessive trait does not show in the phenotype, you're still considered a carrier of that trait. So let's see what that means. Down here you should have some examples of these different types of pairing. So for the very first one, we have two dominant alleles, and because they are the same, we know that it's homozygous, and because they are dominant, we know it's homozygous dominant. And in this case, it will show the dominant phenotype because we have at least one dominant allele. Right here, we have two different alleles, so we call this heterozygous because we have one dominant, one recessive. Because there is at least one dominant allele, it will still show the dominant phenotype, but it will be a carrier of the recessive trait. So this can still be carried down through the generations. Our last example, we have two recessive alleles, and because they are the same, we call it homozygous, and because they're recessive, we call it homozygous recessive. And this is the only time that you will see a recessive phenotype is when we have two recessive alleles paired together. If you still need help with this, go back to yesterday's work and also use Quizlet for vocabulary practice.